Hello again, welcome to part 2 of this video series. This etude, of course, we're going to be talking about the slow or second etude for bass clarinet all state. And again, of course, stick around to the end of the video where my friend Celeste will play this in its entirety on bass clarinet. So let's hop right in. As I said in the last video, dynamics are really important and are going to be hard to convey this year because of microphones. But we really got to strive to do that. Especially in this etude. The way I like to teach these etudes is we want to strive to start as soft, when we start soft, to do these softs as possible. When we do louds, like we need to do them loud. A lot of times people play the entire slow etude soft. It's the slow etude, it's not the soft etude. So I don't know why everyone goes into the room and just plays it very wimpy and soft. Don't do that. There is lots of loud. Some of the loudest moments in the entire audition will be on this piece. So keep that in mind too when you do this. So starting out, we have a crescendo getting into this, and then of course the diminuendo. But again, like I said in the last video, pick a volume that you're going to stick with and do that volume every single time. Get to a volume that you want to do, stick with that every single time, and you're going to be fine. And like I said, with accents, we don't want them to be, these aggressive things. We just want them to be heavy. We just want them to be heavy. That's fine. As far as that goes through the entire piece, it's not too bad as long as you're making sure you use this dynamic contrast. It's one of the easiest things to implement in your playing with this piece, and it will be the difference between you making region and going on to area or making all state, doing these dynamics. So please make sure you pay strict attention to what's happening with dynamic, and please make sure that you're getting loud. Do not be afraid to get too loud in this piece. That will be the reason you don't make region or area. The other reason you may not make region or area is because rhythm. The number one missed thing on this etude is by far rhythm. And I understand for younger students, it can be like Da Vinci Code trying to decipher what's happening in this etude. I understand that. But maybe ask an older student, band director, private lesson teacher, what's really happening here, and make sure that you are doing the correct articulations. Something I find that helps a lot with me, it helped me a lot when I was in high school, was one, counting this piece in eighth notes. It's real easy to count it as written, but you got to count it as eighth notes because that'll help solidify what's happening and help you have way more precise rhythm. So what I mean by that, so the first note of the etude is a half note B, right? And it's really easy to think just slow 2, 1, 2, and then you got the quarter note C, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. But don't do that. Don't do that. If you do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. Instead, think of this as 4 eighth notes for the B, 2 eighth notes for the C, and then the 16th notes get a beat for every 2. So we're essentially doubling the value of every single note. And I have an edition of this where the entire thing is doubled, and I'll probably put a link in the doobly-doo to help some of the younger students out if this is just way too complicated. Older students, you should definitely be reading this, and you need to learn how to read the rhythms, regardless. So that first etude, or the first measure, I'll articulate every single note, every single beat. So we're thinking of it like that, and the pulse now is 8 beats per measure rather than 4 beats per measure. So that means really complicated looking measures like measure 8 aren't really that bad because we know the C sharp gets 1 beat, the B also gets 1 beat, and then each grouping of 4 30-second notes all get a beat. So it ends up turning to B, do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, because that G is going to get 3 beats because it's 3 eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, turn, boom. So it ends up sounding like this. So, and that's really hard to, I hope that makes sense. It's really hard to convey in such a short amount of time here. But do that. I put little ticks throughout the entire etude so I know where every single beat is, and if I can't figure it out, then I ask for help for these really complicated measures, and someone at your school should be able to help you with that. So just make, again, I strongly recommend doing that, putting ticks. Every single measure should have 4 ticks. So that means, going back to that first measure, the B, write 4 little ticks above it because it gets 4 beats. The C, 2 little ticks, and so forth, and putting it exactly where each tick belongs. I promise you, it'll take you maybe 10 minutes to do this, but man, is it just such a lifesaver in like figuring out exactly what's happening with the rhythm. I think there are some weird rhythms though in this piece that even, you know, if you were sitting there trying to figure this out yourself, you probably wouldn't be able to. So measure 2, for example, the very first beat there, we have the F sharp, we have that E 32nd note. That's kind of, we got the double dot. What is that? It's really weird. So with that, I would just think of that as the F sharp gets 2 beats, and then that 32nd note maybe might feel kind of like almost like a grace note into the next thing. So just hold for 2 beats, da da dum, da da dum, like that, and that should be fine for that. The other complicated measure, I think, rhythmically, is measure 12. We have this quarter note tied to a 16th note, and then we have this like crazy run, right? So the crazy run isn't too bad, because there's just 4 groupings of 32nd notes, and each grouping gets 4 beats. That isn't too bad, but getting into that is kind of weird for younger students. You know that the D is going to get 2 beats, but it's tied into another one, so it gets a total of 3 actually before we move. Like think about 3 foot taps maybe before we move. And think of it, you know, start thinking of it like that, and that'll make sure that that is exactly the same every time. That rhythm, of course, comes back in measure 44. Same thing, different notes, same rhythm. Okay? So when learning this piece, you almost have to treat it as 2 different pieces. When I was learning these, and sometimes still with some of these, or because they can be hard, I pick out the hard measures that have really fast notes or really complicated rhythms, and I learn those separate from everything else. So for this piece, maybe measures 8, measures 12, measure 23. These all have fast rhythms, and they have just very complicated rhythms too. So I would learn these measures just like you would the fast etude, where you're just concentrating on making sure the notes are correct, that you're getting this very precise with the metronome, things like that. And of course, I would start these measures like way slow. So I set the metronome, you know, really slow. And just do that a million times and speed it up until it gets where it needs to be and matches the rest of the piece. You don't have to play this entire piece slow like you do the fast etudes. But these hard measures, you definitely have to take the time to do that. And take the time to do that. A lot of people don't take the time to do that. You know, and I see it all the time. They don't do that, and they try to just rush through these measures, and it ends up sounding bad because they didn't treat these measures like the fast measures that they are. So make sure you're taking the time to do that. So let's talk about some of these fast measures though, because you know, even with that advice, you're gonna have a hard time. So looking at measure 8, I like playing the C sharp, the first one, on the right hand, and then once I get to the B, I leave it, left hand B, I leave it down the entire time. And then I let it go right around the D sharp. So check it out. Go ahead, slow. All that right there you can play on one with the right hand down, or right pinky down. And then you can let go once you get to the D sharp. Cool? thing for younger students, the sideways S, backwards sideways S, that's called a turn. And what a turn is you start on the note, you go up one letter name, back to the note, down one letter name, and back to the note. And if there's any sharps and flats, then on the up and on the changing notes, then you need to put those in. So this one has a sharp underneath the turn, so that means they want the bottom note or the fourth note, because you go the note, up a note, back to the note, down, back to the note, 5 notes total. They want that one to be sharp, so the fourth note, the D. If they had written an accidental above the turn, that means they want the top note we're going to be sharp or flat. So that's what's happening there. It's a little confusing. Back up the video if that didn't make sense, and listen again. If not, ask an older student. That'll help too. So check it out. Also, accidentals come into play. So this goes from E to F. Remember, we're going one letter name. Then we got to check the accidental, the key signature. Okay, wait, that's a natural or a sharp for F. So that means we're going to F sharp instead of F natural. And in this etude, I would just say try to get those 5 notes in as fast as possible. Opportunity 1, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. Okay? Trills are the same way. A lot of people think, well, what note do I trill to? I hear that question all the time. What note do I trill to? Well, you trill to the note, you go up one letter name from whatever note you're on. So if we're looking at measure 12, we're on A. What note do we trill to? Well, B. B is a one letter note name away from A, one letter name up. Are there any sharps and flats for B in the measure, in the key signature? Nope. Then we go to B. It's not a half step, it's not a whole step or anything weird like that you might have heard. It is one letter name, and then you take into account any accidentals in the key signature or in the measure before it. And of course in measure 12, there's no B natural, so it's going to be natural. Or there's no B flat, so it's going to be a B natural. So when looking at measure 12 and learning it for the first time, don't put in the trill right away. If you put in the trill right away, you're going to get all messed up with the rhythm. Learn it without the trill. A lot of these measures, when you're learning them for the first time, don't learn them with the trills or the grace notes or the turns. Just learn them, get the skeleton, I call it, correct. Once you get that foundation correct, then you can start incorporating things. So with this measure, I would start slow. Or even slower if you have to until you get it, and then you can start incorporating the trill. And even then, don't incorporate it right away. A lot of people just, okay, I'm gonna do a trill now. Don't do that. Instead, go practice that little section there. And then realize you have to get the 3 notes in right there on that A. That's tough. But try to get it as fast as possible. If the rhythm fluctuates a little bit, that's okay. That's totally okay. If you're a good player and playing beautifully, you can do cool things with the rhythm like that, and they're gonna think you're using all this expression and stuff. When really you're just slowing down to facilitate the trill, which is fine, which is what we want. Measure 23. Measure 23. We have a trill held for 4 counts. Some trills are really easy, some trills are not so easy. This is F sharp to G. You should have figured that out. G, not G sharp or anything weird like that. F sharp to G. So that's a pretty easy trill for us, especially if you're right-handed. But in any case, it can sometimes be hard to play the trill for that long. That's a long time to hold the trill. And if we slow down at any point in the trill, then we've messed up. We can't ever do that. So I think sometimes it's okay to accelerate into the trills. I'll back it up a little bit. then we get something cool like that, rather than just, you know, and then holding it out. If you hold it out, that's fine. If you can do that, I personally don't like risking that, because if, you know, you hold it out that long and slow down or something happens, then, you know, you messed up. You can kind of stop the trill a little. Kind of hold a little bit on the F sharp. And then get into your grace notes. Ya, da, dee, da, dee, da, da, like that. And this, of course, this measure after this, I would practice really slow. Like that. I personally play the B right here on the right hand. I love right hand Bs. I'm not a fan of left hand Bs. I like right hand Bs a lot better. I also play that D sharp 1 and 2, or you can also play it 1 and 1. If you want to play it on the side, that's fine. Really, the only D sharp you should be using is this one, and that's fine. Don't hold fermatas too long. A lot of times you go into the room and you hear someone play it like this. This is measure 25. That was way too long. That was way too long. Don't do that. Just, you know. Something normal like that. Just a little bit longer than what it's supposed to be. There's a formula for what a trill fermata is supposed to be. It's the I think it's something like the note that says plus half more or something weird like that. Don't bother with that either. Just play it a little bit longer than what's written, and you're gonna be fine. So for a lot of this piece, we have a lot of these measures that are you know, maybe a half note or a quarter note followed by some 16th notes, then some 8th notes, and it just goes like that a lot. And so forth. So I love this section. I think the way we need to do that, of course, is don't play the accents aggressive. Notice I didn't like jab each accent there. And I instead kind of bloom every time we have an accent. And crescendo all the way through the 8th note, and then bloom again at the accent. We're gonna back off, and then we're gonna crescendo, and then get really big, and then kind of bloom again. So check it out. I'll start now. I'll do it's 29. Okay, just like that. And you can make this section so beautiful or really ugly, depending on what you decide to do with that. So be careful. Again, accents, this blooming, heavy thing. Which gets us into the rotondando in measure 32. Don't slow down too much. Again, I hear some of this sometimes. That's way too much. Don't do that. This is a hard change. I know I didn't talk about breathing in the last video, and I probably should have. If you need to breathe anywhere, it's always okay to take breaths in between things, so long as you do it the right way. Of course, we want to avoid breathing and inserting breath marks that aren't marked, but if you have to breathe, that's fine, as long as you do it the right way. The wrong way would be where we just abruptly stop and then just put in all this space, and it's really long, and there's nothing like round about the edges of that. Finally, looking at measure to go toward the end of the piece, a lot of everything in between the odd tempo is going to be the same as the beginning. So I'm not going to rehash that again. But we have a turn at the very end of the piece, the three measures from the end there. So it's A, of course, to B natural, to A, to G sharp, to A. It's really hard to go from A to this B, so don't do that. Instead, we're going to go to the top. We're going to finger A, and then go to the top key there. That's actually a trill from the trill for A to B natural. Pretty cool. But we can use that for our turn as well. Like that. And that's pretty cool. So again, focus mostly on getting the rhythm absolutely correct. That is the number one thing that is missed in the room. Focus on getting good dynamics, because that's the number two missed thing in the room. After that, like it's really just getting the style correct and never playing too aggressive. Actually, so funny story. I actually played. Make sure that you swab your instrument out before you play, because when I played this in high school, if you check out measure 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, we have a C sharp there. So I didn't clean out my instrument when we went to play, and there was water, there was spit in my key here, so it ended up sounding. And that's what happened. All the spit just like gurgled right there. I still made it and everything, but my friends said that everyone took out their cases and swabbed their instruments like right after I did that. So that's kind of funny. So so make sure you do little things like that too. So anyway, I'll leave you to it. I'll let Celeste play that, and I'll see you in the next video.